We are live. Go Manu.
Good morning, everybody, and good evening to India. Just welcoming our panelists today, Jamshed Mistry and Gayathiri Guliani. Today we're talking about untangling entertainment law.
Hi.
And I'm so fortunate to be part of CoSAFF this year. It's been an amazing opportunity, learning opportunity during the pandemic, where Seven Festival has come together on a virtual platform, and we've joined hands together to do a virtual CoSAFF. So it's been a very rewarding, interesting, challenging opportunity for all the seven festivals. Just to name some of the festivals that are involved, and obviously the Sphere from Seattle has taken the lead to really make this festival come together for the entire team. So thank you to the Sphere. We have the Nepali American Film Festival. We have the South Asian Montreal Film Festival, Mosaic International Film Festival, Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival, which I'm a director of. DC Film Festival and Chicago Film Festival. And tonight, this morning, I have Jigar from Chicago with me. That's going to be co-presenting the panel with me. So welcome all. Welcome Gayathiri. Welcome Jamshed. A little bit about Gayathiri. Gayathiri is the director of international distribution and syndication at Sony Pictures India, with 21 years of experience as a media specialist. She pioneered in opening the China market for Bollywood films. She has been honored by the Chinese government for promotion of cultural exchange in the field of media and entertainment. Welcome, Gayathiri. Go ahead, Jigar.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you so much. And good morning, good evening, everyone who are watching us across the globe. I am actually super excited for this panel today. And I feel very honored and privileged to present our very special next guest, Mr. Jamshed Mistry. Jamshed Mistry serves as a counsel in the Bombay High Court and the Supreme Court of India. He's the founder of the International Legal Alliance.com, which is a virtual global network of lawyers. He also serves as an advisory board member of the Vancouver-based South Asian Fashion Week and Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival. Jamshed, welcome, and Gayathiri, welcome to the panel. We are super excited. Especially me. I have a very unique journey, and when I heard about this panel, I am into law school right now, and whole my experience has been into strategy, marketing, operations, and in the last 10 years, I have been also attached with the film festivals. So this is all coming together, and I was super excited. So once again, thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jigar. That's lovely. Manu, thank you so much. And thank you for having us. It's a wonderful opportunity to, ideally, we would have loved to meet, personally, but the times are such that we are meeting virtually. So better late than never, for sure. Jamshed.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments, Gayatri. Absolutely. And we hopefully should be, that side of the world next year, and then we can meet in person. I think that will be wonderful. And thanks, Jigar. Very happy to have a law student talk to us.
Yeah, I'll be learning a lot from both of you today, so I'm excited. So,
Thank you, Jigar. Yeah, so I'll start off with obviously some of the more technical questions, so we can get to some of the fun questions later with Gayathiri and Jamshed. So my first question to Jamshed is, we're talking about contracts all the time, and just to get the legal aspect of a film contract, can you go into sort of a little bit of a deeper meaning of what a film contract looks like, and what a co-venture and a co-production looks like in different countries?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Manu. Very interesting. In the field of entertainment law, one of the great levelers is the fact that you have, contracts which are very, very similar around the world. I mean, the last 25 years of practice that I've seen, I mean, only the language might change, but language in the sense, whether it's in English, French, or Spanish, but the basics of a contract pretty much is very, very standardized around the world, which is a very good thing. So typically, just to quickly, if no one has ever seen a contract, what does it look like? So you have, initially the names of the parties to the contract. Then you have a clause which has usually the word whereas, which means it's a recital clause, which describes the relations as to why the parties to a contract have actually come together. And then you have the contractual terms. In essence, it sort of gives the rights, liabilities, duties of both or more parties to a contract. And then you have important clauses. The intellectual property, the IPR, is very important. You have indemnity and guarantees that are usually mentioned in great detail. And then you have clauses like the jurisdiction, that is for in case there is a dispute. So which court has jurisdiction? You also have alternative dispute resolution clauses, that is, for either arbitration or conciliation or mediation. So that is also mentioned. Of course, describes how much each one is, the producer pays the artist or the writer or whatever. And then you have schedules to the contract, which are sort of like annexures. And, so that's typically the sort of the making of a contract. And in each country, you would follow the contract act of that particular country. So that's basically what in layman's terms sort of a contract would look like. Your second question was on the issue of co-production and co-venture. Now, several countries across the world, and the US is, of course, an exception to the rule. You have official co-production treaties that are signed. Like, for example, Canada has signed, I think, co-production treaties with around 60 countries of the world. India is a little, behind. We have about maybe 15 countries. The interesting bit about an official co-production is that it has basically, it means that two producers from two countries have kind of come together, and it's like a marriage of sorts. They've thought of a particular idea, and they will then go ahead and execute the contract between the two countries. There are a lot of sort of fundamental advantages in the sense that if you go back as to why co-production treaties were signed, it's basically the UNESCO and the UN bodies felt that there is a need for cultural exchange, and that cultural exchange can happen through official co-production treaties. And certain countries have done very well. The UK is a great example. I mean, they've had co-production treaties with several countries. They've, of course, because the British Empire, and things like that. But you can even have multilateral treaties where you have, sort of movies shot in different places. You can get a lot of advantages in the sense that each country may be offering different incentives. So all those incentives are then put together in a pool, and you can get an advantage of an official co-production treaty. But with the US and with several other places, although colloquially it's called a co-production, you actually have what is known as a co-venture. And co-venture is also entitled to sort of incentives that each country offers, but the main difference is that for example, say there's a treaty between, say, Canada and India. That film would be considered Canadian in Canada and Indian in India. That is not available. It would in a co-venture, it'll be considered a foreign film. These are the subtle differences. And with studios and today with the OTT platforms and things like that, constantly you have a lot of and most international films are generally co-ventures.
Thank you, Jamshed. That was, very, very detailed in terms of what we look for in contracts. And sometimes being filmmakers, we sometimes we don't understand the whole structure of how a contract looks like. So thank you for giving details on that, and also explaining the difference between a co-venture and co-production, because that is also a very confusing platform when we start to venture out to do films. And you've worked on the Canada co-venture or co-production treaty for so long. I mean, you were the one of the reasons why it even got formed, 8 years ago. So congratulations on that. And I know there's been many films that want to produce films within India and Canada and even in the US. Now, my next question is on if a movie is being made in collaboration with India and an international production house, under which jurisdiction one can pursue question. India's entertainment law actually protect foreign filmmakers when there's a co-venture happening or a co-production happening?
Sure. As far as yeah, so that's interesting. So let me come down to the issue of jurisdiction, and I'll delve into another very interesting aspect. Very recently we have now what are known as international arbitration centers now, which have been established in India. Okay, this was not the case earlier, and also something that has been really brought out because of the pandemic is online dispute resolution. So today it's possible that you could have a dispute that is completely online. I mean, the resolution is online. It's done. You can, both parties can be anywhere in the world. The great thing about ADR or ODR, is, as it's called, is that they don't follow the strict rigors of court. So you could be sitting at 1 a.m. in one country and noon at the other. The counsels can be from any part of the world. The arbitrators can be from any part of the world, and this is a huge plus, so that you can have international standards met. And this is being we are sort of going to be talking to the Producers Guild in India. Unfortunately, Mr. Kulmeet Makkar, whom we all know, I mean, he passed away, and this is something that we spoke to him about. Just I remember just 2 weeks before he passed away, and he was very excited about this. And hopefully, this is a something that will be introduced in India very soon. So jurisdiction is not a problem. Now, the great thing is that one problem that filmmakers in India always had was, say, if you said jurisdiction California, then what happens? Okay, so I think our courts are also, thanks to the pandemic and other things, they're also gearing up. In a year or two, we're going to have an entirely, completely online court system in India, from Supreme Court right down to the district court. So I think that's going to change dramatically, which is great for a filmmaker coming to India. So I think we're getting there. The other spectacular thing that has also happened is we've got changes in now in our labor laws also. They've all been converted into a code, and the right from the artist to the digital journalist to everyone is now, like unlike the past where you didn't have social security, you would have a fixed contract. You have so many other, positives that, and all these are, I'm talking about things that have happened weeks ago. So I think the timing of this panel is great. So I think it's a great thing. We're moving pretty much in the right direction.
Thank you, Jamshed. And I also want to add that because of the pandemic, I think we're really taking the time to really encouraging the right kind of paperwork. Everything is going digital. So the whole black and white aspect is really coming into play, where in the Indian law, sometimes we can look at things where it could be slightly, gray in the gray areas. So thank you for sharing that. I am going to come back to you, but I do want to ask Gayathiri a question, which is very specific to, when she took all the Bollywood movies, say, to China. And I'm sure she saw the whole aspect of how law works between the two countries.
Manu, I think you froze.
Yeah, looks like Manu is froze.
Manu's
That
froze.
question
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, she's
now
back.
relating to what Jamshed was saying. So what was your biggest challenge at that point? And also, now that you work with Sony, what are some of the current scenarios that you've been seeing, and how content has been consumed on the OTT platform? I know I'm asking two questions because we have a little bit of time, so explain
Right.
both aspects of it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll come to first to your question of first and foremost, it's great to have all of you to meet you over here, and everyone safe and healthy. I think that's the main concern, that we are all doing well right now. With regards to Manu, your question on taking Bollywood films to various countries. So China is definitely one part of it, and it's supposed to be one of the most difficult countries when we were actually dealing with it. So when any process begins, so we start to work from backwards. And when I mean to say backwards, it's basically the policies and the government regulations. And China has very, very strict government regulations that really, makes it very, very difficult sometimes to go wider or penetrate, because you have to go through the China, the censorship and everything, which is like at the paramount, importance, basically. So that is where, and it takes a lot of time. Basically, the processes over there to understand how the process, and you need to have a correct partner in the country, who's supposed to be guiding you through it. The local partner is so important, by the way of a distributor who understands, who's kind of who has released films, who has a great relationship with the exhibition and with the government, because everything is driven from there. It all originates from the government over there. So when, like a case in point, it's something very interesting that I'd like to share, is when Three Idiots was actually being planned, because that was the stepping stone when it released in China. Yeah. So it was basically a very conscious strategy that was made. Where we did not go directly to China. We started with the Southeast Asian countries. We started releasing first in Taiwan, and then we went to South Korea, and then we went to Hong Kong, and then we went to China. So by then, there was so much of chatter that happened. And each of these markets also did very well. And another anecdote I'd like to share is that in China, Three Idiots was the most pirated film, even though, irrespective, it did what it did. It did a business at that point of time. The film got released with 900 screens at that point of time, and it did a business of close to 3 million, And today, flash forward, you have a Dangal, which does astronomically well. You have Bajrangi Bhaijaan, completely a new market actually opened in 2017 and 2018, where there were almost like 12 to 13 films back to back that were released in China. So this is something that, these are the quick pointers one should always remember, whether it's even co-production or whether it's distribution. I think you have to have the right partner is important, to get the legal paperwork is important, and to know the government policies and regulations, that's very important. So that's there. And your second question was with regards to the consumer behavior and in the time. So what I would like to kind of just give you a market scenario with pandemic is that obviously things have slowed down. Things have slowed, and India, a country of like, literally having one of the biggest movie producers, which does close to about 1,400 to 1,600 films per year. That includes all languages and everything. And suddenly there is a stop there. Also, it also has a TV industry. It has an advertising industry that really thrives upon each and everything. And everything is a value chain that's interrelated. With pandemic coming, though obviously there have been shoots that have come to a halt, and there are certain films. There are certain films which were done. They were ready to be released. They were halted because it directly impacted the exhibition, right? So that opened another strategy, where the OTT platforms, where everybody started moving towards OTT platforms. So the relationship that started developing was, a more of a give and take as well, because OTT platforms, while they are programming for their movies, their concentration is more towards their originals, which were being shot. So that also halted. So suddenly what happened was the content for them, what they had planned for originals, completely made a shift to the movies, which was available in the market. And they called it as opportunistic buying. So then you had something like a Gulabo Sitabo that went on Amazon, Shakuntala, that was our film that went on Amazon. And right now Disney and Hotstar has kind of almost announced about like 7 to 8 films. And this also includes an A-lister, which is called Lakshmi Bomb, which is going to go on the 9th of November. Dil Bechara also came. So suddenly there's a whole surge. Now, what has also happened is that the big ticket films are still waiting, like something like a Suryavanshi, something like a 1983 that were about to be released. They are still in waiting. But the other films like a Gulabo Sitabo or Dil Bechara, where the producers sometimes kind of like have already invested so much of money, and there's a lot of economics which is involved in it. When you keep kind of like waiting, they can't be waiting forever, right? To get a clarity whether the exhibition are going to open or not. So this became a correct opportunity for them to do a cost plus model, where the OTT came in, they say like, hey, you know what, we want content. And the producers said, you know what, we have content which we can deliver. So that's how this whole cycle started. Yeah.
That's some really good insight, especially we'll go back to the first question quickly on terms of how you were able to take these films, but you didn't go directly to China. You went through the loops until it hyped up. And then, I remember when people were talking about Three Idiots being in a country like China or Hong Kong, and we were like, how does that happen? Like, right. Do you dub it? What do you do, right? But Amir Khan being such a big personality, we thought, okay, maybe somebody like him was able to, but then we forget about the people that are really working in the background. So
right. Yeah, I think you froze again.
Also, you had mentioned, and I will pass it on to Jigar after this question. We'll just touch base because now we're on the stream of the same questions. So you had mentioned that because the theatrical window is now closed and these big movies are still waiting to be released. Now, due to COVID, what is the overall impact on the producers of the OTT platforms? Because they're not able to do originals anymore, right? Like a Netflix original or an Amazon original. Yeah. So what is the overall impact on those producers?
So they are all in waiting, Manu. The thing is that there are certain content which are just half done, they are halfway. They're waiting for the shoots to kind of begin. And currently, I think in about like in 2 weeks time, slowly the shoots are actually coming with a lot of restrictions. And there's only a certain percentage of crew that is to be there, all right? Now, for these producers, the only thing is they have to wait. They have to wait, and of course, the OTT has to support them. And during this time, the originals, what the OTT are doing is they are listening to a lot of creative and development, because there is a lot of work from the back of the scene that is happening except being on the ground. The most impacted sector is that, of course, media, but even that, the vertical that is most impact has seen the most impact is distribution and production. So rest, everything else is right now, there is creative and development that's going on. OTTs are listening and putting their whole slate of, the content that they want to do the moment it kind of, the pandemic gets over, or the permissions the government gives to kind of like get to the shoot and everything. So meanwhile, to fill in the content and everything, this is where the producers and the smaller producers, the independent movies, they are seeking and going to all the platforms, which includes like Amazon or a Netflix or a Disney or a Z5, or any, whether it's international or Indian platforms, who are completely robustly who are buying. And there is a very big reason for it, Manu. What has happened is that during pandemic, as per a recent survey by KPMG and a couple of things, there has been a surge of 47% growth on OTT. People have been watching OTT. Youth has been consuming OTT almost like millennials have been consuming 65%, into binge watching, and they have nothing else to do. The second growth that has been seen is gaming. Gaming has again gone up, hugely. It's almost again gone up to like 40 to 45%. And television for the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they have also gone up by about almost 9 to 12%. But whoever today, devices, obviously OTT is something that is available in all devices. So it's very easy for me to switch on, on a computer and watch it, or even on my phone and watch it, or an iPad, I watch it. So this is the scenario. So the consumption and OTT platforms are very well aware of this development, and that this is happening, and obviously they need to feed in more content, which is there. So it's like at this point of time, nobody ever thought that, this kind of situation will arise. So it's again, as and when things are happening, things are evolving, there are new strategies coming up, there are new business models coming up. And the independent producers are also seeing a lot of merit, because they happen to, the OTT platforms are paying a certain premium, because they can't, it will be a direct to digital, and they are branded as originals. So what original content that OTT was supposed to be producing, they have taken that as a branding, as an original to their content by these producers, and their producers are fine with it, because they will not see the theatrical, at least for 270 days, once it goes on the platform.
Thank you, Gayathiri. That's some really good inside information about, how things are changing. And just the numbers you shared in terms of increase. I mean, I can even relate to myself, the whole binge watching aspect of it. And I hope things, change into the most positive way for producers and to the whole making of content. So I'm going to stop talking for a little bit, and I'm going to pass it all over to Jigar, and then I'll come back with maybe one or two more questions later. Go ahead, Jigar.
Thank you, Manu. This was great. And Gayathiri, when you were bringing all these points, a lot of more questions were coming to my head, and I was just blown away, with the entire the marketing, the distribution, the strategies, which you have to go through. A lot goes through, after the film is done, and people don't realize it. So thank you for sharing that. And Gayathiri, I'm going to come back to you with more questions. And also I wanted to let, you and Jamshed know that our audience are really enjoying this, talk, and, a lot of questions are flowing in too. So we're going to get back to the audience questions very soon as well.
Sure.
But coming back to Jamshed, Jamshed, you actually brought up a very good point earlier, about the COVID, and how everything, about the co-venture, and it's just fascinating, right? And as, as an entertainment lawyer, it also, bridges the gap between intellectual property rights, like the IP field, especially, in the motion picture media industry. Copyrights, trademarks, right of publicity is super important. And in this age, Jamshed, when we have so much access to social media and technology, one question I was thinking was that, is the transformative fair use being truly transformed? Like, what are the common challenges you see in that? And if you have any recommendations for our filmmakers and artists on that.
So, I mean, as you said, it all the IPR is basically based on sort of copyright and trademark law, and now you have sort of social media. I mean, we've had situations where people said that your script could not be copyrighted. I mean, that was a challenge. And but I think the coming down to copyright, it's very interesting because of the Berne Convention and other conventions that other countries have. It's very international in that sense. One issue that we really have is that unfortunately copyright is enforceable only through courts and local sort of courts with having jurisdiction in that sense, wherever there is a violation. I mean, typically we should now perhaps be moving, more towards a WIPO-like connections. WIPO stands for World Intellectual Property Rights Organization, where if you have domain disputes, it goes to one central body. So that's something that maybe we can, hope for in the future, rather than, depending upon the how IPR is enforced in various countries, and a lot of countries, and especially in South Asia, there is sort of it is looked at in a particular way. Like, for example, in India, it's very common that you earlier people used to come and try and stop the release of movies almost at the sort of the nth hour, saying that, oh, this is my script and there is a copyright violation, etc. And the courts have come down very heavily on them, saying that we have to balance the rights of the producer as well as the script writer, or for example. Uh, so that's one. Another major issue is, in India, is the non-calculation of royalties. I mean, that's a very major issue which needs to be addressed, because anywhere else in the world, an artist or a performer does, and US is a great example of someone who can very happily live on royalties. And we're seriously, I mean, I've heard in a court in India, for example, somebody saying, oh, but we don't know how to calculate royalties. I mean, sorry to use the word, that's a whole load of rubbish. It's very simple. There are standards, etc. For fair use, I think it is also it is very interesting. Fair use is a relative term. We've had uh, perhaps a little less than maybe in China and places like that, on as far as the illegal use of or of stealing of copyright. I think that's the way we've had. I mean, an example was, we had the Indian independent filmmakers who were producing a show, and somebody just came into that where it was being shot, and just used his phone, and before you could say Jack Robinson, it was uploaded online. And what about that, and how are these issues taken care of? The independent filmmakers, we had to go to court, get what is known as a John Doe order against someone who had a URL registered in a nondescript state, and it is very difficult to enforce. But I think all the law is evolving. It is getting more and more positive in the sense. I think our judiciary is also getting better educated. We now have a system by which we can access judgments of other countries, and this is again something that we're laying a lot of emphasis on. Consider point of law which would be relevant to that particular issue. See, trademark is very different. Trademark has to be registered, in each and every individual country. So that's again, the regime is different. So and of course, India, the copyright law is now, we follow the French system, and so you have performers rights, moral rights, and so many other things. So is a relative term, but I think the fact that, as Gayathiri very rightly said, the use of the OTT platform and the pandemic has suddenly acted as a huge balance in that, and it'll be interesting to see, how the law develops around the OTT, and that's something that one is really looking forward to.
Yeah, Jamshed, this is great. I mean, I can't really, agree, more with, you, like, you actually brought up a very good point about stealing the copyright. And that's actually the new term, because, copyright issues, and you're just stealing it, which is going on so much during these days. And what Gayatri was mentioning also on the OTT platforms and VOD, when we have so much content outside, you don't know who is using what. So that actually, gets into like a good flow of another question, Jamshed, for you. Uh, Talking about this whole streaming content and channels and VOD platforms, where we have, how can filmmakers protect their broadcasting rights against any illegal streaming? Because there are a lot of illegal streamings happening, in these days, and any advice you give, as a brand protection in this digital age.
So of course there are two aspects. One is that you can now get which includes not only defense costs, but also and these large reassurance broking companies are ready and willing to offer. They tailor make policies to suit producers, requires that you get the entire project insured, rather than going just for individual aspects of it. So that's one. And of course the law is very clear that an insurance company will sort of it's not only if you're accused of doing something wrong, but even if somebody sort of steals and you have to take them to court, I mean that's now an aspect that insurance probably would cover. You could fortify your losses in that sense. But I think the important aspect is today, we don't have, for example, a repository of copyright worldwide. I mean, music, for example, how do I know that this particular song is an original? Or how do I know that the copyright typically you would go to a producer or somebody else. But, with the way the commercial world goes, you might find that the copyright might actually lie with the Bank of Japan. And I mean, except if you put out a notice in a publication and somebody reads it and then responds, uh, uh, this it's a huge issue. And I think that's again something that the community, film fraternity around the world needs to come together and look at that, the repository of copyright, and what is wrong the minute you know, or you've sort of registered your film, uh, put it out and say that the copyright belongs to XYZ. I mean, I mean, this. I don't think it will violate any, confidentiality or things like that. It's very important. People must know who the owners of the copyright are. So, I mean, that's something very, very important.
Great. Thank you, Jamshed. Thank you for shedding light on copyrights and trademarks, which are really really important, especially in the entertainment and the media world. So thank you for that, Gayatri. Coming to you. um, very very interesting scenario and landscape you pictured earlier in our talk, and as I said, I was very blown away, especially when you said about the Three Idiots, and Shakuntala and Gulabo Sitabo, making into this OTT platforms and the streaming world, right? So, very, very basic question, to all our viewers who are watching right now. And since you are, you are the expert in that whole sales agent, world, can you just tell our users, and viewers that what is an international sales agent mean, and what are the main things as a filmmaker should take care of, when they get into this whole distribution channels, and when is it a good time to contact an agent?
Interesting. There are a lot of things that there's a lot of things which are wrapped in your one question. So I'm gonna go one by one. So for any independent producer, okay, first and foremost, what matters is the target audience that he's looking at. Who are the target audience? Who is he make the film for? You know, and followed by that is that when does a film actually get ready? Who are the talent attached? Who's the director attached and everything? Because each and everything, um, you know, actually credits to a point. That's the most common, or the most simplest way, if I could kind of tell, is that let's say a good director or a good producer and a certain talent which is attached, and a good story, because nowadays stories are the ones which are really really driving, and the globe is actually shrunk, because any language or anything is absolutely fine. You could be watching an Iranian film, you could be watching a Japanese film with English subtitles and everything. So that way, language is not a barrier anymore. And thanks again to the Netflix and the Amazons, where we are able to see all the festival films and everything, right? So for a director or any independent filmmaker, what is most important is the content that he's looking to produce, and what is the target audience that he's looking at, and what is the genre that he's targeting. Okay, so based on that, one begins to automatically start or organically start to push and ideate and strategize what are the markets that he should try to kind of like get his film out. If it's producing for a local market, then it's completely a different strategy. If he's producing for an international market, then is there a certain co-production element into it? Is the film being shot in several places? What is the story? Where is the story based? And these are the things. Okay. And as far as the sales agent is concerned, now basically sales agent are agents who are present in practically all the film festivals, who are catering to worldwide. There are global sales agents, there are local sales agents. So their day in and day out, their jobs is basically they have their whole set of database of buyers who kind of come to them, and they know the pulse of the market. They understand what the buyers want. So today, just to give an example, a horror film, you made a horror film. So possibly the horror film, the genre horror really works very well in Japan, Indonesia, and these kind of places. So a sales agent will be able to tell you that, okay, this is your genre of horror. So this is something that is more conducive to that kind of a market, which is more horror driven, where you could get better monies, when you sell the rights and everything. So that's how it is planned. And when a sales agent could come, he could come at any stage, actually. There are times when people have a certain script and a certain talent attached and a certain director, they could actually approach a sales agent and get a dipstick done. And there are many times that we do it. It's as good as like for a marketing or an advertising, they do a focus group, right? So you could actually do that. Or when you made a film, usually, then it's far more easier because the sales agent gets to watch the film and then they try to say, okay, fine. It's far more easier for them to kind of categorize them, as to which markets that they could take and how could they do it. So for an independent producer, and also to add on to this, a festival circuit makes a huge difference to them, because if you're submitting to a festival and you get an accreditation of a festival or any kind of recognition, then it adds another feather to your cap. So it's far more easier, because the moment the festival kind of applauds it, or if it's even nominated for a certain category, so then automatically all the sales agents and other buyers also want to buy that. So it's a cycle, it's a cycle. But what sells actually is the content. And if the content is good, then I'll give you a very interesting example. Okay, we all know about Lunchbox, right? Irfan Khan's Lunchbox. Now, interestingly, the film had a great run internationally. It did a great run, almost like close to about 18 to 20 million internationally. All right. But as opposed to that, in India, it did not do so well. It was okay, But interestingly, what happened in the local market sometimes, and particularly in India, when you go through the whole circuit of international, when the recognition comes to you, then people are far more receptive to hear and to watch it, rather than you first, because the comparison is local content versus the international content. So local content will always be the first preference for any country, for the matter of fact. So that's how it's kind of like that.
Very well said, Gayathiri. Very well said. This actually definitely helps. Especially the folks who are getting into the the filmmaking side of the business. So thank you for sharing those examples, which were great. Actually, it dovetails into a very unique another question, Gayathiri, I have for you. So being a filmmaker, right? Filmmaking itself is a very huge undertaking, and especially when you are an independent filmmaker, and then on top of that, there whole comes the pile of marketing and distribution, especially when you don't have any sales or talent agencies attached to it, when you're not a big name, I'm just starting my foot in the door, kind of a thing, right? So the only resolution, and being managing the film festival for last couple of years, I have seen that the filmmakers come to the festival to get that marketing or promotion of their films, and
Right.
God knows if something goes really well, one of the streaming platforms might just pick it up, right?
Pick it up.
So there are a lot of these streaming giants, as you mentioned, a lot of things are going on OTT. There are wars going on, and the economy is volatile right now. And to add another complexity on top of it is COVID-19, right? Which kind of like change and altered the entire acquisition landscape, completely. So in these tough times, especially to a first-time filmmaker or an independent filmmaker or a filmmaker who has a very small budget, what's your advice for a distribution strategy? How should a filmmaker attack those strategies so that he gets the most out of this whole distribution channels?
Right. So I think this is one question like I'm asked most of the time with regards to the independent filmmakers, and it's first and foremost, I really want to applaud to all the independent filmmakers, who really have that, have taken that step and taken the plunge, because it's all finally driven by passion. So to make it and put it together, it is a Herculean task. And the other part is, of course, the distribution and ensuring that it reaches the maximum. So today, as opposed to earlier, Jigar, the venues have opened quite a lot. Okay, I'll give you a few examples later, but initially, let me answer the direct question that you asked. Okay, so again, coming back to, it is extremely important for the independent filmmaker to understand for who is he making the film for, right? But there are times, even in Bollywood films, although Bollywood is so popular, the films release almost like 60 to 70 countries, any A-list of film release 60 to 70 countries, and the B-listers about like 45 to 50 countries, okay? But there are many films that are not conducive for in overseas, for internationally, okay? they're very heartland stories. The sensibilities and ethos are very grounded, more for a local market, right? For such films, usually they find a great platform through film festivals, and they send it across to the film festival. So from there, they are picked up by different countries. Like there are certain films, let's say like a Parched, that was done by Leena Yadav. It had Radhika Apte and everything. That was picked up by Europe, that they had a great deal coming from Europe. So it's a journey. This is something which is a journey. An independent filmmaker, I totally understand. There are various business models. One is to go to the studio and go for an acquisition completely, where when the studio acquires, then they look after the complete marketing and everything, and the distribution is completely done by them. Okay, so they should kind of probably even depend on them, because there is already a certain machinery that is working, which is they have the relationship, they bring it on, and you as an independent filmmaker, you've made the film, you just need to pay a certain amount of probably whatever the service fee that a studio may ask for, to give you that complete, take you under your umbrella. Okay, that's one. The second thing is, with festivals and everything coming now online, everything is getting virtual. So it's very easy for all the filmmakers also to get in touch with the festival directors and everyone, related to the festivals directly also. So that is also another strategy. The other strategy is to kind of like release through the local market first, and then eventually kind of like look for a sales agent and go and let them do their job of like, globally selling it, because those sales agents are trained to go to every market, to go to every festivals, and to position their films and pitch it, and they sell it, and they kind of come back to you with whatever the proceeds there are. So these are the kind of possibilities. And now with OTT coming in also, so they have a greater opportunity for them to explore, to go direct to digital as originals, where the OTTs sometimes, they like initially, about 3 to 4 years ago, okay, so Netflix picked up films like Masan and all of these, which were very international, but yet festival friendly films, because there were certain kind of artish kind of films that really had a lot of resonance, in the international market. So they picked up quite a lot, considering Netflix is worldwide, they're there. Now, coming to the other opportunities that I would like to kind of throw upon is for any independent filmmaker, when they're creating a content today, the format of content has absolutely exceeded itself beyond a theatrical, beyond a satellite film, or beyond everything, right? So it has now, content has kind of actually taken many forms. Like for instance, a film, let's say a 120-minute film can be made into a web series today, okay? It can be made into a shorter version. So that's the power of content, which has kind of come nowadays. It has actually kind of like formed itself into various formats which can be used, But so any independent filmmaker, once it's made and once it's sold, he should keep the rights also with himself in order to exploit the other kind of formats that may come up. He could even put it as a graphic novel, if it's a gaming, like Bahubali was made in animation, all right? Like a war, we all know about Hrithik and Tiger, it has a possibility of becoming a gaming. So today, a single content can become, far more, it just kind of, it has got a multiverse right now. So that is something that, I would really look at exploring, and I would really urge people to explore that.
Great, Gayathiri. These are the great words of wisdom, and thank you so much, for sharing those strategies with our filmmakers and all the viewers. Thank you again.
I have a question as well when you're done.
Yeah. And then I was actually going to go with our audience questions as well, Manu. A lot of audiences are very interested and they're really enjoying this talk. So we have questions for Jamshed as well coming up.
Yeah. So I just want to ask, because Gayathiri just finished this topic about independent filmmakers, which is every filmmakers, they go through this process. So my question to just Jamshed is on the same sidelines. Now, Arshad, who is the director of Mosaic Film Festival, is asking, at what point should a filmmaker consult a lawyer and get legal help, and what are the costs and benefits? So pertaining to, you know, what Gayathiri talked about, which is so insightful in terms of distribution and creating content, we also want to know what are some of the things that they should look at in terms of legal as a new filmmaker, or, you know, filmmaker that's done a few films.
So, I think, I mean, the way the world is going, and, legalities are changing, I think you should uh, consult a lawyer right from the beginning. I think a lot of filmmakers, make that mistake and I mean, a case in point is somebody whom we know, who actually got in touch with us very recently, and I told him, I said, listen, I think you should, engage with a lawyer right in the beginning. So, uh, you know, I think the whole concept is, be prepared. Have somebody look at your contracts as an omnibus, solution, rather than waiting for a problem to arise. By which time, quite often it's the detail, it's the drafting of the contract, it's the understanding where you kind of miss a clause here and there, and that can actually lead you into a lot of trouble. Yes, I think insurance is very, very important. I mean, I'm just repeating this again, but so the legalities coupled with insurance, I think, by and large, you should be all right. But yeah, and you should also, your lawyer should be able to anticipate what would happen. I think that is a very important aspect today as well.
Jamshed, on the similar line, one of our audience member, Priya, she's asking, where can I find trustworthy entertainment lawyers in US and in India? If necessary, where should I copyright my script in US and in India?
Okay, I'll take the second part first. I think today copyright can be done anywhere. I think it's probably, as of now, cheaper to do in India, and you can get protection worldwide. But that's fine. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of sort of good, and I mean, the younger lot of entertainment lawyers. See, people like us, we never formally studied entertainment law. That's the difference. We did it more as Gayatri said, as independent filmmakers did, with passion. So we would go about and read American textbooks, and learn more about it, and we learned on the job. But now it's a subject that is taught in law school, and we encourage that. And we also are trying to get the film fraternity to it doesn't matter who you are, the law is going to touch you irrespective. So the knowledge of the law in whatever sort of space that you are within the media and entertainment industry, I think it should be a part of your job profile. You must know the law. I think that's and as things are more and more global, and the world is shrinking, this is should be uppermost in your mind. And yeah, we would be we have a entire network of lawyers, so wherever you want in the world, we can put you in touch with people, no problem.
Yeah, Jamshed, you rightly mentioned, and since I'm actually going through a law school, I can certainly certify that we have a separate subject on the entertainment law, which initially wasn't there. So and especially with the USPTO, and the whole entertainment industry, how there is a combination going on. So that's really amazing. Uh, Another question I just got, from another user is. I'm a screenwriter from Netherlands, and if I write a script that targets the US and or Indian continent, should I copyright my script in each country?
Uh, well, I think the Berne Convention would probably cover uh, if you copyright in the Netherlands, it would probably apply because it's a as a law student you would know this is uh, typically in the copyright process after you filed they advertise, and advertise mean why do they do that? Because there are you invite objections from and this is a right in rem. Sorry, I'm using a Latin phrase. It means against the world and not in personam, which is not personal. So I think that aspect is you should be okay if you've copyrighted it in the Netherlands. But I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't cost too much. And if you are, you're sure that your script is going to go or is likely to be, used worldwide, then there's no harm in spending an extra dollar or a rupee and just getting it copyrighted in India just for an additional protection. You could also register it with the various associations like the Writers Guild of in the US or the Screenwriters Association in India. I mean, that's also a good thing because in case there is somebody steals it, they have the power to evaluate your script vis-a-vis the other script, and that has persuasive value in courts of law.
Over to Manu. Manu, if you have any questions coming from the viewers.
Now, I just have a quick question for Gayathiri in terms of like when you're picking projects for your making your film or your web series for your OTT platforms or for your TV or satellite, when you see the packages that come through and people want to get funding from, say, Sony, do you look at a package and say, okay, well, this one doesn't have any legal information or legalities within the package and this one does? Which one do you give priority to, as somebody that's in distribution? Like, how important is it for legal documents to be part of a package when you see it?
So, Manu, so in India, so what we do, and we are like the American studio, like which is Sony, and most of them, right at this point of time, when we receive any projects, so there is something called a document that goes from our end, which includes an NDA, which includes a release form. So that is almost like a document which a producer has to sign before we accept any project. That's one important legal document that is there. Okay, number one. Number two is, for instance, if the producer is submitted to a project to us, which is based on somebody's life, which is based on a biopic, or which is based on a certain personality, or an incident, or anyone. So that point of time, there is a humongous amount of checks that we do, in order to circumvent any kind of cases or anybody who kind of just stand up at the last moment and say that, hey, this was my story and this is something that I'm doing. So we have to have certain legal clearances, from the right holder of the biopic or the person, an NOC from the person, and or any event that happened, people who are connected to the event. So yes, it's extremely important, and that's the first ground that we start with. And after that, of course, when they submit, then the release form goes, and post that, then of course, the content, and then moving forward with that.
So legal makes it or breaks it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's it for me for questions. I want to pass it on to Jigar, and if we don't have any, we'll just take some last comments from the both of you, because we are at 1 hour and 5 now in terms of our, and we do have a little bit of time if other questions come up, but But yeah, Jigar, if any last questions
Yeah.
or if you have comments from Jamshed.
Thanks, Manu. No, I'm actually getting, a lot of audience questions. If we have like 10 minutes or so, we can definitely ask and take, some advice from Jamshed and Gayathiri today. One more question came up from one of our viewers is for independent filmmakers working on small budgets who sometimes can't afford, legal help. What are some of the resources to still protect the filmmakers and their work?
Jamshed.
So in the sense that you mean to say, is there sort of legal aid available for filmmakers? I mean, as of
Yeah,
now,
it's
I don't
like
think
free
there is.
legal aid or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think entertainment industry worldwide is one of the biggest money spinners. So I don't think it falls within the category of legal aid vis-a-vis, say, entertainment law or, I mean, sorry, environment or human rights. Uh, I don't think so far, but probably, uh, the whole concept, I mean, it may be a great idea to have a sort of to set up a legal resource center, worldwide. Maybe film festival circuit would be a fabulous way to start something like this, and where we could get I wouldn't call them absolutely pro bono. I mean, you could be a little anti bono, but you can, maybe it'll be great to get, young lawyers, and students such as yourself, Jigar, involved in something like this, and we can set it up, and it's today virtual rules, and it's so easy. I mean, we run a virtual network of lawyers, and it's fascinating. That you can reach any part of the world within minutes. So I think it's possible. It'll be good to set up something like this. As a and we can say we spoke about it at CoSAFF.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's great, Jamshed, and super excited, myself, and I'm sure there are a lot of other, folks like me who actually want to, build a community around this, especially to the folks who really need help, and who cannot afford, the high legal fees. So I completely agree. Uh, another quick question, and to both of you, whoever wants to go, about COVID, right? So COVID-19, 2020, man, what a year, right? Who knew this was coming? Changed the entire entertainment legal landscape, right? Uh, so I'm talking more on the COVID insurance claims. So what are the challenges for the entertainment industry? And what are those COVID insurance claims which the filmmakers or any of the artists can bring in?
Okay.
I'll open up to either of you.
Yeah, sure.
Jamshed, go for it.
All right. I think you know claims vis-a-vis differing of projects. That is one aspect. You see, the other problem that, for example, in India that we had, and the Honorable Supreme Court has sort of is, for example, tourism related or travel related. I mean, you've had, for example, say uh, tickets that were cancelled as a result of that, and this Supreme Court has actually framed a scheme by which travel agents, travelers can get, full refund to credit, etc., because of COVID. Uh, as far as claims are concerned, with regard to insurance, uh, it was very interesting. I mean, on with regard to the medical side of it, that's different. But because shooting, and I think Gayatri will be able to talk more about this part of. Uh, so the little that happened, and the SOPs that are being followed. Oh yes, that's something else that we must speak about. That the industry had to sort of come together and form sort of SOPs that which would act and ensure that I mean, not only social distancing but other aspects were taken into account. And these are all very, very new. And as you rightly said, I mean, who would even thought that something like this would happen? So I think it's an evolving aspect. I mean, one is in touch with insurance companies, but I haven't really heard of massive claims yet on this subject. Uh, yes, for payment of wages, etc. Yes, but not you know other some which is sort of it's very interesting. Nothing earth shattering yet. I mean, if something like that happens, we'll let you know.
That's so good to
Yeah.
know, Gayatri.
Right. So this is something which is evolved. So for particularly what is affecting is the shoots that have kind of halted, and due to that, obviously there have been an incremental costs that has happened. Okay. So usually when any film is being made, so insurance plays a very important part, and there is a certain whole bucket list of insurance you go through. And of late, obviously, COVID has not been included, and now COVID is being included. With this any kind of pandemic that's been included. So it definitely impacts. It definitely impacts the budget. It definitely also impacts the timeline and all of those things which is there. So yes, I mean, now the insurance companies are looking, and even the production companies are looking, and they must look at, when they're doing insurance for their film, they must look at this clause where anything to do with pandemic. It could be COVID 19, this whole 2020 which has gone by. We really don't know, in next 10 years or 20 years something else may come up. So this is something that has been added into the insurance part of it, and it must be made an important point.
Got it.
Yeah.
Manu, any other questions came up? I just want to check we have all the audience questions answered.
I would only ask Jamshed if there was anything he would want to touch on the Canadian side of things, if there's anything, or your last comments on. Actually, you were talking about there's a scenario that's been changed in the Indian law, which you wanted to talk about. Do you want to touch a little bit on that, and then we can do our closing remarks?
No, I think I mean we've spoken about it. As I said, social security, and which was something that was completely absent for the artist in India. The like a permanent letter of employment, etc., are all I mean, they've gone through the Houses of Parliament and are awaiting the presidential assent. And I think it'll become law very soon. The other aspect is, we have a law for MSMEs, which means, small and medium-sized enterprises. And, a lot of, production houses support ancillary, companies, that is, whether it's equipment and things like that. I think they should probably take advantage of that law, because we've heard so many times that the government incentives are not enough. You don't get loans for sort of a multi-million-dollar industry like that in India. Uh, you know, Formally, as you know, there is no official, except for IDBI, bank loans. It's not sort of hasn't been granted industry status like other industries. But I think indirectly we have sort of slowly moving in the right direction. We had to go to court for introducing a safety code for and which the court has kind of accepted, and I think that hopefully will also come. And the other thing that I also heard, in the grapevine was a very attractive financial sort of incentive scheme for shooting in India is on the anvil. So we're waiting for that, hopefully.
That's really amazing. It'll be just my last question to Gayathiri. Now, just been getting messages on the fact that, our cinemas, they've announced that they're closing, which is going to be, again, a loss of jobs for a lot of people within the North American market, US market, Europe, and also Canada. Now, OTT platforms are getting big, but then it's also taking that part of our jobs away. You being in that industry, like, and it affects so many of the people that are kind of, going through the pandemic. And I think OTT was already doing that. It was already kind of structured in a way where theatrical releases were going to get lower because OTT was coming up. And now during the pandemic, it's just completely, sabotaged our whole theatrical releases. What do you feel about it, in terms of working in the industry? Like, it's obviously a negative and a positive, but how do people kind of just recover from it, from such a loss?
Right. I think this is a temporary phase, Manu, as of now, because there have been umpteen number of opinions and everyone kind of talking about, oh my God, is the theatrical going to go away, or is it going to, even when OTT was like really booming, and it's still booming right now. At that point of time when pandemic had not hit, with the advent of OTTs, a lot of films that were going, people were saying like, is theatrical going to get affected? And what kind of consumer behavior that we could be looking at, The question, I think the answer to that is theater viewing is never going to go out, because it's more, theater viewing is more of a social viewing. It's more like your friends, your family. It's something that you're emoting together. That feeling and that experience is something that's never going to go. So it is always going to be there. So it's just a temporary phase. And even the OTT platforms also, they are inundated with the content. They really don't know how to index it. They really don't know. So they've suddenly become the buyers. They've become the kings. They're choosing, So it is so important for OTT, the balance between theatrical and OTT to be there. And that's going to open up for sure. And anyway, exhibition is something that's coming back strongly. Like, we as a studio, we still believe that we would want to support the exhibition medium, before we go on to OTT. So this is something that we are strongly, from the top management to everyone, that we have this sentiment in unison, because it is a ecosystem on its own, generating jobs and livelihoods of people, and also it is connected to the age-old habit of visiting the theater and experiencing it together. So this is basically a temporary phase, and even the platforms also understand that this is a temporary phase, and they are believing it that the temporary phase. The moment things are going to ease out, so obviously then whatever, like the bigger films will go to theatrical release, because they have to start from something which is, again, to pull back the audience, because right now it's not normal. The new normal is going to be different, so there'll be a different choice of films that people will choose to go to watch, which is like something like a more experiential, like a Bahubali, or completely driven talent driven films who are popular, like let's say a Rohit Shetty, which is a completely comedy, and like a Suryavanshi, or something which will drive the families back to the theater. But on the contrary, when there are small films, that's going to still take some time for people to go back to the theater, like the way how probably you would just walk away and you would just say that, okay, I want to go to the theater, let me go and watch a movie. because that choice is something, it's up to a consumer that this time has got. When he chooses to say, like, you know what, I'm going to be spending so much of money, I'd rather spend and enjoy and experience it together, and see the rest of the films, which probably I'm getting to watch, in the OTT platform. So that's the change in consumer behavior. But theaters are here to stay for sure. The magic of cinema is always the celluloid, so they are always going to be staying.
Very well said, Gayatri. Magic of cinema and my magic of popcorn and my soda, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So, no, thank you
Yeah.
once again. We are almost about the time and we'll wrap it up. But I really want to thank, you and Jamshed, both of you, for taking the time out today and speaking with us and being a part of CoSAFF, which, we are all very proud of this year, joining forces from 7 festivals together, a lot of creative energy. And, this is a very, very important topic, especially, from the filmmaker perspective, from a business perspective. So thank you once again, Jamshed. Really thank you, taking the time out and, speaking with us on a lot of entertainment law issues. Gayatri, about distribution was super helpful. So
Thank you.
so thank you once
Thank you
again,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you.